Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. It's my great honor to stand here again. I think today we missed our chairperson and the co-chair, and I know one of them missed the flight. But it's not worse since. I remember 5 years ago, I have another talk in Osaka for the World Federation of Biological Psychiatry. I missed the two chairpersons, and we have 4 speakers, but only come 2, and no any audience sit there. So still, we finish. So this time it's much better. Okay, so today I would like to, today I would like to present the data which part of them has been published and part of them still under reviewing. Is we are image the dopamine transporter and measure the hippocampus volume in schizophrenia, but we measure both within one subject. So that's the background. As we know, the dopamine hypothesis still play a very important role in the pathophysiology of schizophrenia. And endogenous dopamine was regulated by dopamine transporter, which can regulate the intrasynaptic concentration of dopamine. And the second is hippocampus volume has been consistently reported in schizophrenia, and the total hippocampus volume reduction is quite obvious in schizophrenia. But recently, we can use another, other data analysis methods, such as manual tracking method. We can see the longitudinal axis of hippocampus. We also can use a software called FreeSuffer to divide the hippocampus into subfields. Third is, of course, the hippocampus has a very close interaction with a dopamine system in the brain. So Professor Grace, who is very famous in this field, they published a paper and proposed the model. It's an interaction of hippocampus and dopamine system. So that's our background and study aim. For the image of dopamine transporter, it has been many articles report since we can use different radio tracers and in different situations. That's our colleague in Taiwan. We published this paper several years ago in Schizophrenia Bulletin. And in Taiwan, we have one tracer called TC99 Trodate. This radio tracer is very easy and popular because, there's a research institute called National Institute of Energy Research in Taiwan. As I just mentioned to Professor, this institute was used to build up the nuclear bomb, so that's for political issue. But now we cannot do that, so these experts, they try to help us to develop new radioligand. And one of the most prominent contribution is they let the Trodate, these radio tracers, become very easy. They let this radio tracer become the co-kit. So the clinical application, we just mixed with the isotope TC99 in the clinical use. So in Taiwan, we use this radio tracer to differential diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. It's very common. Our colleague, we did the schizophrenia study, and we also did the meta-analysis. And unfortunately, we found use Trodate to image dopamine transporter has no significant change in schizophrenia. But this study includes large of confounding factors. So we decided we should repeat this study in different situations, such as first episode drug-naive schizophrenia. Quite interesting. Recently, there is a group, they publish actually dopamine transporter increased in first episode drug-naive schizophrenia. They use another tracer called beta CIT iodine 123. This tracer is less selective compared with dopamine, with TC90 nitrate, which we are using. So we think we need to replicate with a better radioligand. As you can see, this result is increased. To the hippocampus story, of course, that's the large-scale meta-analysis and the review showing the most convinced brain image structure study in schizophrenia is brain volume loss, in particular in hippocampus. So that's the research model which was proposed by the Professor Grace, and they think there are very complicated interaction between hippocampus and the dopamine system, in particular in substantial nigra. But of course, that will be a very complicated interaction of neurotransmitter such as glutamate, GABA, or dopamine. So in this study, it's very simple. It's just the branch. We will measure dopamine transporter and the hippocampus volume within one subject. And we try to replicate data, and we try to see how the interaction in schizophrenia. So that's a methodology, and we use TC99 to measure trodate. Of course, we recruit 40 patients, 29, they are chronic schizophrenia with medication cessation for 2 weeks, and 11 first episode drug-naive schizophrenia. We use trodate image dopamine transporter, and we choose simple ratio method to do the analysis. Hippocampus volume, we did manual tracking for longitudinal axis, which includes head, body, and tail. And the subfield, of course, several subfields will include in this study. And we measure the clinical severity of symptoms, but we did not use a full scale of PANSS. We retrieve 8 items from PANSS, which also has been proposed as a remission criteria. So 3 positive symptoms, 3 negative symptoms, 2 general psychopathology. For descriptive statistic, we use ANCOVA and a t-test, but for inference statistic, we use linear regression analysis. So that's the result. We can see the two, we separate into 3 groups, but we can see a bit change educational level. But of course, healthy volunteer has a higher educational level, so that's why we choose ANCOVA and try to covariant these 2 factors. So that's a representative image I would like to show you. In the up one, as you can see, that in the left side, that's a longitudinal axis which covered head, body, and the tail. But in the right side, that's a subfield analysis. In the lower row, that's a dopamine transporter. As you can see, it's very localized in basal ganglia area. So quite interesting. First, we would like to see the dopamine transporter in different brain regions, which include the putamen, caudate, and the thalamus. And we can find, in our 11 first episode drug-naive schizophrenia has a higher dopamine transporter binding compared with healthy volunteer and chronic. This result is consistent with another group, which I just mentioned to you. They use beta CIT. So, but we get into more detail, and we found only this area, putamen and the thalamus. The first episode schizophrenia has a higher dopamine transporter binding. Yeah, so that's the data by statistic, as you can see, these two areas. That's very interesting. Actually, we also try to correlate this data with clinical symptoms, but I will not present here. As you know, thalamus is a very important area for schizophrenia, but this area has a very less dopamine transporter. So we still need to increase our sample size to increase the power. Then we can explain. So that is hippocampus volume by the manual tracking system. We want to see longitudinal axis. Of course, in the as you can see, the total volume definitely in chronic schizophrenia is decreased, and we can see only the tail has a very significant significant decreased. And one interesting point is, as you can see, this blue bar, that's the first episode of schizophrenia. The number is always between the chronic schizophrenia and healthy volunteer. So we in this study, even we don't have so large sample size in first episode schizophrenia, but we can see numerically this volume since between chronic schizophrenia and healthy volunteer. So that's the number, and we can see these differences with red number. This is data from subfield. As you can see, in subfield, we only see one area. It's hippocampus area is in the post part of hippocampus, which also consistent with the manual track. We can find the tail has a significant decrease in the schizophrenia. So that is the data. And as you can see, the total hippocampus volume also decreased. That's for by using the second method. But we only can see that the hippocampus area. In the previous study by other group, there are several areas has been reported decreased volume in schizophrenia, such as CA1 or CA4 dental gyrus has been reported. But in our data, we cannot see that result. But we found this hippocampus area is decreased and significantly. We did linear regression analysis, and we put some, all area which showing this decreased or any changes in the model, and we found only the hippocampus area has a good explanation power to the change of clinical severity, which means we use that total score of 8 items. So where is the hippocampus area? That's the original paper. And as you can see, this original paper showing hippocampus area, it's not very small, and it's located in the posterior part of hippocampus, which is consistent with manual track method. The only point we try to correlate with this this area, the volume of this area with Penn's score, we found there is a positive correlation between the area and the clinical severity. This is beyond our expectation because generally we think it should be negative correlation, not a positive correlation. So it's still very difficult for us to delineate this true meaning. But we saw it's quite consistent, and it is a positive correlation. So that I would like to summary and make a conclusion is in this small sample size, we replicate our colleague previously reported. Actually, in first episode, drug-naive schizophrenia has increased dopamine transporter. And of course, we are first time to propose the hippocampus area. This area, it's as I know, it's not well studied area. has a correlation with clinical symptoms. That still confuse us, so we try to check. And of course, in the dopamine transporter, not the overall changes, but mainly located in the putamen and thalamus. So that is my conclusion. Is we firstly proposed hippocampus area by use free sulfur. We see this area has a significant change in first episode drug naive. But as I know, since free sulfur has still some problem, and sometimes it's not so exactly to get the right position. So I think in this study, we still need to increase the sample size of first episode schizophrenia. But another point is nowadays, in Taiwan, we have a quite nice medical system. Almost all first episode schizophrenia has been treated by a local clinic. And if it doesn't work or no response, they will transfer to the medical center. So that's our difficult. So this project lasts for a long time, but still we are waiting for the true first episode drug-naive schizophrenia to join this study. So that's my presentation. Thank you for your attention.